mean, before we talk about, the duality, but what are your thoughts on that? Where do you stand? Is ignorance bliss or is knowledge power?
So I'm going to say both. I think ignorance can be a blissful moment, and
you have to choose. I'm
not choosing.
That's fun. That's a little fun caveat.
You have to choose. You have to pick one. You have to pick one. I'm not saying either one is true or not, but you have to pick one.
Coach, I'm definitely going to go on the side of both.
How about we pose this question? If you could only choose one and live your life with one concept, which one would you choose? I still don't know.
I would go with
I'm going to have to go with knowledge.
Okay.
Because the thing is, no matter how smart you get, you are still ignorant. So if I get to choose knowledge,
that's true.
There's so many things I don't know. The smarter I get, the less I know.
But see, that's where the catch is, because you say there's so many things you don't know, which is why I say ignorance is bliss. Because I would rather go into any situation as if I know nothing, with curiosity and with the ability to learn, than to walk in it with all the knowledge in the world and not have the ability to learn anything.
But then you're becoming knowledge is power when you walk into that. So then you have that.
They're one and the same. But this is why I posed this question, because I wanted to see what you guys would say. Anthony?
If I had to choose one, I would say ignorance is bliss. Just because we can definitely make contrasts between ourselves and just other animals out in the world. We know a lot more, and we create a lot more problems for ourselves by just being knowing, conscious beings out there. So when I see like my cat, for example, she's very ignorant of what's going around her, but she's very blissful and has a happy life.
I don't know though. Is she?
She is happy. She all the signs that she's happy.
A few days ago, I was talking with someone, and I was just saying that I think I'd like to be the world's biggest fool. And they said, why would you like to be the world's biggest fool? Because they say that fools ask more questions than a wise man can answer. And boy, do I like to ask questions. So, I'm actually going to go with ignorance because, once again, if you know the 4 stages, like the unconscious competence, incompetence, then the unconscious competence, and like the 4 stages there, when you go to unconscious competence, which is not knowing that you know and yet you're competent, like you drive a car from your work to your home, you don't even know how you drive the car, your brain is doing the work. I feel like staying in ignorance and staying in that space, knowing that you can add to what you don't know all the time, and if you can't, hey, you're not missing out because you don't know anything anyways. So have fun.
You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
Well, and it was what's the Aristotle quote? It's the more you know, the more you know you don't know.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Which is true in many ways. I mean, it's true. I was having a conversation with someone the other day too, and I was arguing with him. Well, I don't argue. We were having a discussion.
Never argue. Never, ever.
And but again, it's what we teach as coaches, right? When you're with your client, you're supposed to go in and go in with curiosity, right? Without knowing, with the lack of knowledge, so that then you can learn. One of the questions, what do you know that is preventing you from knowing more?
Right.
I mean, think about it.
And it's always that what you know is which prevents you from knowing more. It's always what you know which is preventing you from living a powerful life. It's always what you know which is stopping you from, truly living to your potential. Think about it, because it's something that you know, which is something which has happened in the past, and therefore you know about it. And your past, when it comes and clouds your future, you're not to use any French words here, but you are messed up. Right? If you can have a blank canvas, like every day you get up in the morning, and if you could have a blank canvas and say, I'm going to draw what I want to draw on this, not based on what I know will work and not work from it. But it's not possible to live in the real world like that. I know that, but even then, I feel ignorance, getting up in the morning in the space of curiosity with a blank canvas, fresh, trying to create it from nothing. Wow.
So
we haven't heard from you yet. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, would we say that the knowledge is power would be more of an overthinking concept where we're sharing that the ignorance is bliss is an open to learning process? Is that what we're?
I mean, it could be what we're talking about. It could be, it doesn't have to be.
These are pretty relative statements as to how we react to them. Because when I said I believe in knowledge, it's because I don't know enough.
Mhm.
So I am ignorant.
Mhm.
So it's a very much centric based on the person as to how we respond to a very broad question.
Sure.
Mhm.
Sure.
Now, T.
I agree with the ignorance is bliss thing because for example, one time I had a friend, I was going to school in Eugene, and I had a friend of mine who was not Samoan write a paper about Samoa. So she went and she did all this research, and then she wrote this paper and she asked me to read it. So I read it and I said, it's not like that. And she was like, yeah, it is. And I said, girl, 18 years of my life I spent inside. I grew up there. It's not like that. She's like, yeah, it is. That's what the encyclopedia, all of these things. That's what this said. That's what Google said. That's what this book said. That's what. Okay, I get it, but I am telling you from experience. Literally, I lived there 18 years of my life. It is not like that.
Mhm.
And she just could not understand it. But and even then, like, I was like, wow, she's super ignorant. And then getting older, I mean, even where I'm at now, even talking about it now, I'm like, I didn't understand where she was seeing it from as well, because here's something that she was really passionate. I mean, she even before that, she was always talking about, I cannot wait to go visit Samoa. And I'm like, man, you'll like it. It's a really good time. I'd probably retire there, but I would not grow up there. And she was like, why? It's so beautiful. But that's the thing, is you see this because it's an island surrounded by water, and it's like, oh my God, it's so amazing, so beautiful. And blinded by it then. Blinded by that, blinded by the beauty and everything else. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
But I mean, you bring up a good point, though, which is another sort of philosophical kind of thing. What can we really know? What do we really know?
That sort of brings into with T's story about experiential knowledge versus, learned knowledge or descriptive knowledge about a thing. And I forgot what this was called, but there's some philosophical sort of thought experiment where if you were, let's say you have a blind person and you're a scientist yourself and you are trying to describe in the most minute detail what the color red looks like.
Mm-hmm.
They've been blind since birth and they've never have seen red. Could you give enough information where that description is the same as the experience of red?
I can't even know where to start with how to explain color. Like, how do you explain color?
I've seen criticisms of both sides, and I don't remember the exact arguments, but there is something about experience that you can't really put into terms to explain to other people. So there seems to be a limit to knowledge in that sort of sense.
And that's language too. That's as a result of language and communication as well, and the limitations there. Go ahead, Abdi.
No, but I was going to say that I may disagree that it's only the limitations of language, because I don't know if you guys see Big Bang Theory. In Big Bang Theory, in one of the episodes, Sheldon talks about how he has learned swimming, I think, and he's done everything that he can to learn swimming, and he's phenomenally smart and phenomenally intelligent, but I've taught my daughter how to ride a bicycle, and I tried to teach her everything that I could sitting at home. But riding a bicycle, there are no words. There is just the balance of it, which you can only get through an experience of it. And, there is no words which describe that, right?
Yeah, it's flexing muscles, really. Like you have to start to build that muscle, and that can be applied, in many ways, not just to actual physical muscles, but using the skill set and putting them into practice is much different than reading about it or or things of that nature, which is interesting. One of the things while studying for this topic, essentially, I read about was something called the Dunning-Kruger Effect, which is this effect that when we have a lot of knowledge about something, we often underestimate our ability to do it because we know what has to go into it. But if we don't have a lot of knowledge about something, we often overestimate our ability to do it. Why? Because we don't have a lot of knowledge as to what has to happen for that of what goes into it. And so this is a very common thing that happens within us. And it's that sort of assumptive state without knowing the whole picture. And once we do know it, we realize, oh man, there's a lot more to this than we initially expected. Which is kind of a beautiful thing, though. If you apply that to on a bigger scale, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. It just means that there's always more to learn.